Have you ever stood in the middle of the living room, watching a tiny child fall to pieces over something that seemed so small, like the toast being cut the wrong way, and thought to yourself, what on earth is happening here? Or maybe you've been in the grocery store when a little one just loses it completely, flailing, crying, the whole works, and you find yourself remembering the days when your own children did the very same thing. The truth is, tantrums have a way of bringing out every emotion in us: confusion, frustration, even guilt. Whether you're a grandparent stepping back into the role of caregiver, or just trying to be a calm, supportive presence in your grandchild's life, those big emotions can feel overwhelming, for them and for us. But here's something I wish someone had told me earlier on: tantrums aren't just bad behavior. They're not always about defiance or trying to get their way. More often than not, they're a child's way of communicating something they don't have the words or tools to say yet. Underneath the noise and the tears, there's usually a message, and once you begin to understand what they're trying to say, those chaotic moments start to make a lot more sense. That's what we're diving into today. We're going to talk about 6 important things a child might be trying to tell you when they throw a tantrum. And these aren't just theories, these are things you can actually see when you start paying attention, and things you can gently respond to in a way that helps calm the storm, instead of getting pulled into it. Let's start with one of the biggest reasons little ones melt down: they're overwhelmed. You know that feeling when you walk into a crowded room, there's too much noise, people are talking over each other, and your brain just kind of shuts down? Well, for toddlers, almost everything can feel like that. Their senses are on high alert all the time. Too many choices, loud sounds, bright lights, it's a lot to process. And because they haven't learned how to say, "This is too much for me," it all just explodes. I remember my grandson, Jack, when he was about 2.5. We took him to a family barbecue, lots of people, music playing, kids running around, and he was doing fine for a while. Then suddenly, without any warning, he just started sobbing in the middle of the yard. Nothing had happened to him. No one had taken a toy, he wasn't hungry or tired, he was just done. His little system couldn't take any more stimulation. So we stepped aside, found a quiet corner under a tree, and just sat together. No pressure, no talking. Just sitting. After a few minutes, he climbed into my lap and calmed down. Sometimes, kids aren't being difficult, they're drowning in a world that feels way too big, way too fast. And what they need most in that moment is someone to slow it down with them. Another common reason for tantrums, especially in younger children, is hunger. I know it sounds obvious, but think about how we get when our blood sugar drops: irritable, foggy, impatient. Now imagine that you're 3 years old and you don't have the words to explain it. All you know is that you feel bad, and suddenly everything is wrong. The toy won't work, the shirt feels funny, someone looked at you the wrong way, and boom, the meltdown begins. And the thing is, kids often don't realize they're hungry. They're so focused on playing, exploring, moving, that they don't notice their own needs until it's too late. That's why regular snacks, especially ones with protein and healthy fats, can really help. It's not about spoiling them, it's about supporting their growing bodies and helping prevent those emotional crashes that come out of nowhere. I used to keep a little snack bag in the car when I was caring for my granddaughter. It wasn't anything fancy, just some crackers, a banana, a small bottle of water. But it made all the difference when we were out running errands or heading home from the park. A small snack could turn what might have been a public meltdown into a peaceful, sleepy ride home. And here's the third message behind a tantrum that's often overlooked: they might just be feeling disconnected. It's easy to assume that because kids are surrounded by people all day, they're getting enough connection. But the kind of connection I'm talking about is deeper than just being in the same room. Kids crave eye contact, warm attention, and that deep down feeling of "I see you. I'm here with you." When they don't get it, especially after a long day or a busy morning, they might start acting out in ways that feel confusing, even aggressive. It's not because they want to be bad. It's because their emotional tank is running low, and they don't know how to say, "I miss you." Sometimes, a tantrum is just a plea for closeness. I remember one time, my neighbor, she's a lovely woman in her 60s who helps care for her twin grandsons, told me about a meltdown one of them had after school. He came through the door and just started yelling at everyone, knocking his backpack over, stomping around. She was about to scold him when she paused, knelt down, and asked, "Do you need a hug?" He burst into tears and wrapped his arms around her. That's what he really needed. Not a consequence. Not a lecture. Just someone to see that he was having a hard time, and not being hard on purpose. When you start looking at tantrums through that lens, not as defiance, but as communication, it changes everything. You stop seeing the noise and start hearing the need underneath it. And when you respond to the need instead of the behavior, that's when the magic happens. Now that we've unpacked a few of the deeper messages a tantrum might carry, feeling overwhelmed, being hungry, or craving connection, there's even more we can explore. Let's keep going, because the next reason a child might be throwing a tantrum has less to do with what's going on around them and more to do with what's going on inside them: frustration. Not the adult kind of frustration we feel when something breaks or someone cuts us off in traffic. I'm talking about the kind that bubbles up when you want to do something, try to do something, and no matter how hard you try, it just doesn't work. For a toddler or a young child, their brain is often ahead of their body. They know what they want. They have the idea in their head. But their hands won't cooperate, the words won't come out right, the zipper won't zip. And in that moment, it feels like the whole world is against them. I'll never forget the time my grandson was trying to build a tower with blocks. He was quiet at first, stacking one on top of the other, really focused. Then the tower tipped over, and before I knew it, he was wailing and throwing the blocks across the room. It wasn't just about the tower. It was about the fact that he couldn't make it do what he wanted. He felt powerless. And for a little person, that's terrifying. So, what do we do when we see a child unraveling because of frustration? The instinct might be to say something like, "It's okay, calm down," or "Don't cry, just try again." But in the heat of that emotion, logic doesn't reach them. What does help is validation. Letting them know it's okay to feel frustrated. That it makes sense to feel mad when something is hard. Because once they feel understood, their nervous system starts to settle. With my grandson in the blocks, I knelt beside him and said, "That tower falling down made you really mad, huh? You worked hard on it." And he nodded through the tears. We didn't fix it right away. We just sat with the feeling first. And later, when he was calm, we tried again, together this time. And wouldn't you know it, the tower stayed up. Another reason a child might throw a tantrum, and this one might surprise you, is because they're testing limits. Now, that might sound like misbehavior, but let me explain. When a child tests a boundary, like throwing food on the floor or refusing to put on their shoes, what they're really doing is checking to see, is someone here to guide me? Are the rules still the same? Is it safe to push a little? It's not a challenge in the way adults think of it. It's more like a search for structure. Kids thrive on predictability. It helps them feel safe. When they throw a fit over bedtime or argue about brushing their teeth, they're not just being difficult, they're asking, "Are you going to hold steady, even when I'm losing it?" And as hard as it is in the moment, the answer they need is calm consistency. Not yelling. Not giving in. Just steady, loving firmness. Like a lighthouse in a storm. Always there, no matter how wild the waves get. My neighbor, bless her heart, once told me, my granddaughter screamed at me because I made her leave the park when it was time to go. She told me she hated me. But I knew she didn't mean it. She just needed to know that I was strong enough to handle her feelings. And that's the truth. Children need to know that their big emotions won't scare us away. That we're still going to show up, with love, even when they're at their worst. One more message behind a tantrum, and this one's especially common in younger kids, is exhaustion. Not just feeling tired, but being completely worn out. And the tricky part is, overtired kids often act the opposite of tired. They get louder, sillier, more chaotic, and then, all of a sudden, it's like a switch flips and they're crying over a sock or a spoon or some other tiny thing that normally wouldn't matter at all. I remember visiting my niece and her 3-year-old after a long day at the zoo. It was past nap time, but we thought, she's fine. She's having fun. Well, about 5 minutes after getting in the car, she completely unraveled, screaming, sobbing, saying she didn't want her seatbelt on, then crying because she did want it on. It wasn't about the seatbelt at all. Her little body just couldn't handle one more thing. When kids are overtired, their ability to regulate emotions disappears. They can't think clearly, and they definitely can't make rational choices. So the best response isn't to reason with them, it's to help them rest. A warm bath, a quiet room, soft voices, all those things help reset their system. Even if they fight it at first, their body needs rest like a plant needs water. And sometimes, the meltdown is their way of saying, I'm spent. Please help me slow down. What I've found, both in raising my own children and now helping with my grandchildren, is that understanding the why behind the tantrum helps me respond with more patience. Not every time, nobody's perfect, but more often. And when you meet a tantrum with curiosity instead of frustration, you end up helping the child and yourself. You feel more in control. More connected. More able to guide instead of just react. It's not easy. I won't pretend it is. But it is possible. And it starts with seeing tantrums not as a failure, but as communication. A messy, loud, confusing form of communication, but communication nonetheless. Now that we've explored frustration, limit testing, and exhaustion, let's keep going, because there's still more to uncover in these moments that can feel like chaos but are really just children asking to be understood. When we start to listen beneath the tantrum, to the feelings, the needs, the messages hiding under the noise, we begin to see something really powerful. We're not just managing behavior, we're building trust. And that trust becomes the foundation for everything else: calm, connection, and even cooperation. So let's keep listening, because we've still got one more thing that children may be trying to tell us when those emotional outbursts take over. Sometimes, a tantrum is really just a way of saying, I don't feel in control. Now, this can look a lot like defiance or stubbornness on the surface. But deep down, what's often happening is that a child is struggling with a sudden change or a situation where they have no say at all, and that loss of control feels so uncomfortable, it turns into anger, panic, or both. Think about it from their perspective. The world is mostly run by grown-ups. We tell them when to eat, what to wear, when to sleep, where they're going, and what they can and can't do. And for a child who's just learning to be their own little person, that lack of power can feel really overwhelming. So when something unexpected happens, like having to leave the playground early, or being told they can't watch TV right now, it's not just disappointment they're feeling. It's powerlessness. And powerlessness often shows up as yelling, crying, stomping, or refusing to budge. Now here's the beautiful part. When we start offering children even small choices, their sense of control goes up, and the tantrums often go down. We're not talking about letting them call all the shots. Just tiny choices. Do you want the red cup or the blue one? Do you want to brush your teeth first or put on pajamas first? These little moments of control can make a huge difference in how a child handles the parts of life they don't get to choose. I saw this firsthand when my daughter started giving her little one a yes space, a safe corner of the room where everything was okay to touch and play with, and nothing needed to be off limits. Just knowing there was a space where she was free to explore without hearing no all the time helped her feel calmer, more independent, and less reactive in other areas. So when a tantrum pops up around transitions, or when something suddenly changes, it might not be about the thing itself, it might be about the feeling of having no say. And by gently giving back just a little control, we remind them that they do have a voice. That they're not just being dragged through life, but part of it. All of this brings us to something really special, and maybe the most important piece of all. Sometimes, when a child throws a tantrum, what they're really trying to say is, I trust you enough to let my guard down. Now that might sound strange at first. After all, nobody enjoys being screamed at or kicked or having toys thrown at the wall. But here's what's really going on. Young children don't yet have the skills to hide their emotions the way adults do. They don't put on a brave face or bottle it up until later. When they feel big feelings, those feelings come out right now, in full force, and they often save their biggest explosions for the people they feel safest with. It's why you'll hear a teacher say, they were perfect all day, and then they come home and fall apart the second they walk through the door. It's not that they're being bad at home. It's that home feels safe. You feel safe. And sometimes, safety looks like a storm. A child who can barely keep it together all day lets go the moment they're back in your arms. And while that might feel unfair, or just plain exhausting, it's actually a sign of deep trust. They know you're not going anywhere. They know you'll still love them, even when they're a mess. And that security is what helps them grow into resilient, emotionally healthy people later in life. That doesn't mean we let them do whatever they want. Boundaries still matter. Calm redirection still matters. But when you shift your perspective and see a tantrum not as rejection, but as a cry for reassurance, something softens. You find yourself responding with compassion instead of control. And that's what changes everything. You start becoming a safe place, not just the person who enforces the rules, but the person who understands the heart behind the behavior. And let me tell you, that's a powerful thing to be. Especially as a grandparent or older caregiver. Your calm presence, your patience, your wisdom, it's exactly what they need. You've lived through decades of life. You've weathered your own storms. And now, you get to help the next generation navigate theirs, with a little more gentleness, a little more grace, and a whole lot of love. So let's take a moment to breathe together. You're doing something important. You're showing up for a child who's still figuring out how to feel and how to cope and how to grow. And you're doing it not with perfection, but with intention. Because the truth is, tantrums aren't just problems to solve. They're chances to connect. Chances to listen. Chances to say, I'm here. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. If this message spoke to you today, if it reminded you of a child in your life, or gave you a new way to approach those tough moments, take a moment to share in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. What's one thing you've learned from helping a little one through a tantrum? Or maybe, what's one thing you wish someone had told you sooner? And if you found this helpful, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We're building a community of thoughtful, loving caregivers who want to raise children not just with discipline, but with deep, lasting connection. Remember, tantrums are loud, but the love you bring into those moments is louder. Here's to being the calm in the chaos. And here's to living your best life at any age, with patience, presence, and a whole lot of heart.